This is part 2 of Love Evidence, St. Joseph's Miracle, that was recorded by my great-grandfather. For the next 3 days, Jan was in extreme pain. He was groaning, banging his head against the wall. He pulled his hair, bit his tongue, bit his hand and my hand, and kicked the nurses that came to take care of him. I was exhausted of staying up all night with him, because there must be something or someone watching him to keep him from physically harming him and bothering others. I was so upset because his life was at death's door and the chance of him surviving was almost gone. His skin was darkened and there were dark circles on his face. He had oral thrush and his forehead was always sweaty. He was getting weak day by day. The doctor said he had meningitis. On the first day of May 1970, it was the Mass of St. Joseph the Worker. I attended the Mass and I pulled the strings for him with St. Joseph, who is his patron saint. When I returned to the hospital, I reminded him to call out St. Joseph's name. His brother also retold him to pray with St. Joseph on his celebration. It was a kind of strange, as I saw his health condition was getting better. Sometimes he was still in a coma, but no longer felt any pain. He was no longer yelling, struggling, or haunted by ghosts like before, but he refused to take all kinds of medicines. By taking the advantages of the coma, I tried to spread the medicine into a powder and mixed with orange juice or milk to give him a drink, but he spat it all out. I presented this with Dr. Van Quale. The doctor told me that the necessary medicines had been added in the intravenous drip. I had some peace of mind when I threw away the daily pills that the hospital gave out. After staying in the emergency room for a week, the doctor sent Jan back to the recovery room. He lay in the bed number 14 and his illness got better. He started to talk, read newspapers, and tell us about the current news. However, since the day he was taken to the recovery room, he completely forgot about everything after meeting Father Phúc Hao Ngo and being confessed. Although he was still weak and pale, but realizing that his temperature had returned to normal and pampered as he wanted, I asked the doctor to allow him to be discharged from the hospital on May 15, 1970. When he got home, in the first few days, he was in full possession of his senses, but sometimes he still dreamed and looked out at the street blankly. He told his brother that he had no illness, and when his friend visited him, he just said,
"I just had a cold that caused a headache. I just had an intravenous drip from the hospital, and my illness was all gone. There was nothing serious."
His brother tried to tell him about his medical condition and showed him the discharge certificate from the hospital. He was very surprised and didn't argue anymore. After 3 days of returning home, an incident happened that made me extremely concerned. That morning, when the injection was finished, Jan suddenly seemed exasperated. He went downstairs to shower with cold water, took a towel to dry sweat, changed clothes, borrowed 200 dam from his brother, and opened the drawer to get his wallet, checked all the papers, took the glasses, and then went out to the street. I told his brother to follow. At the turns to Kanto Market, his brother returned home because he thought that Jan was awake. Towards noon, I asked my friend to find him again and saw him go into a smoothie shop, ordered a glass of custard apple smoothie, and picked his pocket for a cigarette. My friend came to tell him to come back home because Jan seemed a bit unnatural, but he refused. He said that he went to the hospital to see a doctor to confirm his condition, but the nurse's refusal made him so angry, and he decided to sit there and see if people would see him as normal. He wouldn't listen to any of my friend's advices. I had to ask Mrs. Min, who had helped him during the stay in the hospital, to call him home. Even though he didn't recognize her, but he still stood up and paid, put the cigarette back in his pocket, and went home. Stepped into his bedroom and saw the box of injection on the chair. He laughed confusingly and muttered, medicine again. Everywhere I go, I always found medicine. Hearing that, his brother quickly put the medicine box away. Then Jan laid down to sleep. Half an hour later, he woke up, bewilderedly asked his brother why he wore pants and a shirt like this. Why was there a pack of cigarette and a matchbox in his pocket? He completely forgot his actions from bathing until waking up Soon after, he returned to his normal state, but his health was still very weak. On those days, he was usually astounded after waking up, and it took him a while to wake up immediately. I went and met Dr. Van Kwale, and he said that was the effects of meningitis. The doctor told me to take him to re-examination. From the day of taking the medication and the injection on the doctor's prescription, on the discharge day, taking 5 days, he refused to take any other drugs. I tried to give him a sleeping pill because I found him insomnia, but he just shook his head firmly and refused to go to the doctor for re-examination. My heart was breaking because I was scared that Jan would never be healed. After the Buddha's birthday, 19th of the 5th, 1970, I went to Saigon and returned home on a Saturday afternoon, 23rd of the 5th, 1970. His illness was getting more serious every day. His astounding time was also getting longer. At 9 p.m. on the same day, I suddenly heard him talking with an invisible old man. His voice sounded very natural, and his face looked very delighted, but his eyes were closed.
You came to visit me? Yes, you really love me, to make me happy. Wow, your beard is so long. Your beard is so beautiful and as white as silk thread. Yes, your beard is 2,000 years long. Let me tell you my story, my secret. Yes.
Then he started telling the story in a very simple, honest with details about his loved ones, starting with his parents and siblings. As for his relatives, he talked a lot about Aunt Nguyen, Uncle Le, and the oldest uncle, Aunt Han, Aunt Nguyen, and Uncle Tin. He told very clearly about their jobs, their accommodations, and everyone's families, with his old childhood memories, especially when he told about his cousins. He emphasized on Sister Hung, Brother Fung, and Bang, and Brother Min more than anyone. Besides everyone in our family, he also said,
Yes, Prince Paul is not one of my relatives, but I love him so much. He gave me advices. I used to live with my aunt, and I don't know why I left my aunt's house to rent a small house. Yes, I went to Nha Trang and worked there. Yes, the night before my departure, I went to visit Prince Paul. He told me, Yes, I always remember his words. Being narcissistic but misplaced is harmful, isn't it?
Following on, he talked about his friends, boyfriends and girlfriends.
Yes, I also have a lot of friends who are a girl, but it still seems like I don't have any. Yes. When I was in Nha Trang, I also went to the Forbidden Room at the Third Order of St. Francis. Back then, Father Augustine Fong was the Father Superior. I also remember Priest Philip. Yes, he was small but very funny. Priest Philip always reminded me that I have to treat the girls the same as the boys.
He talked until early 12 a.m. I heard him ask,
Who are you? You are a saint. You are a saint who came to visit me. Yes. You also visit many patients like me. But I don't have any illness. Yes, absent-mindedness. I don't have it. Yes, I believe. I need to stay positive, pray a lot, and don't be selfish.
For a few days in a row, the invisible old man kept visiting twice a day, once at 12:30 p.m. and once at 8:30 p.m. The conversation always started with Jan's joyful voice.
You came to visit me. I'm so happy. Let me tell you my story.
And usually, his stories are always an sarcastic story, with his humorous and innocent voice. He was telling stories while laughing. Our family listened and everyone felt happy with him. After he finished telling his story, the invisible old man also told his story. For the first time, I got to know that the old man told the story because I heard Nyan spoke.
Please tell your story to me as well. Yes, there were no ends. Cave, and it was freezing, wasn't it? There was snow, angels, a lot. The star on the sky, epiphany. Yes.
By hearing that, I guess the old man was telling the story of Jesus Christ. Through his words and Jan's question in their conversation, I had a feeling that this invisible man is very kind and simple. There was a time when the old man tickled him with a laugh when he arrived.
Who tickled me? Oh my god, I'm going to scream. It's so amusing.
He laughed and hugged his stomach like it was really.
This is the end of part 2. Thank you for listening and please look forward to part 3.